on. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the virtual Thursdays Dire Literary Series. And we were away for a few weeks while I was on vacation. Not that that matters, but we have a great guest who has a new book, and that's Laurin Macios. And you know what? And this is kind of the cool thing. It's really great to do the show with someone that I know, and so that way I don't have to do the whole, come up with the bio stuff. But I'll show everyone. I'll show everyone the website um, for if you want more information about Laurin. It's just Laurin Becker Macios .com, I believe. So anyway, I'm gonna talk a little bit about Laurin. This is my introduction. She is actually one of my big literary crushes because how she
Oh,
directed mass poetry when the systems were still going into place. So it's kind of early mass poetry stuff. And she started the U35 series through mass poetry, and she also did this at the expense of her own work, and it was very commendable. And then she came out after she was done with mass poetry with a wonderful book of poems. And her new book, "Calling Me Home," is a novel in verse. And I always look forward to seeing Laurin, and she lights up a room, and she's a lot of fun. So let's turn it over. That's the best bio ever. So
that
turn
is
it
the
over.
best bio ever. Thank you,
So
Tim.
awesome to see you.
I appreciate it. You too. And it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for hosting me. And I always love seeing you too. I think we make a very good audience together, especially in churches.
Yes, you do.
um, well, thank you. This is my new book, Calling Me Home. And it is, as Tim said, it's a verse novel, a young adult verse novel. I only wrote poetry and not narrative poetry for a long time. And then when I had my kids, I found that I needed to shift something in some way, and I needed to kind of be able to sit down and pick up where I left off instead of trying to get like newly inspired for a brand new draft of a poem every day. So I decided to try to tell a story. And that's sort of how this came about. So I thought I would just read to you from the beginning. And so calling me home, and it flashes back in time a little bit. It starts Colorado, August 2007 for a few poems. I blinked, and my breath wasn't mine alone, a plus sign appearing on the plastic stick in my hands. The bedrock of all I knew, the very fact of my body, one person in a bathroom in a house in a southern Colorado town, was suddenly untrue. Suddenly, there were two. I forgot to set my little timer. Jenny, my name from my best friend's mouth from the other side of the bathroom door. It's Rissa. I am not big on labels, but those two, Jenny, Rissa, hearing them then felt through the blur like some small salvation. So why couldn't I say anything back? My mouth was a collapsed mine. I huddled, stunned under the surface, with the singular self I knew, numb in my abruptly foreign body. The slumped back of it, the folded knees of it, the head between its two sweating palms, the second body nestled inside of it. I had only barely settled into this body, its still novel small canyon of B-cup cleavage, soft hills of hip and thigh. I had only barely settled into this mind, this person I'd spent 18 years becoming, my setting ever changing, my friendships too. Discovered facets of myself that, brushed off and burnished with the help of good friends, recalled to me each place I'd lived like souvenirs. Riss had been my friend 4 years, the longest I'd lived anywhere, known anyone. Jenny? Rissa called again softly, turning the unlocked knob. My body still, I stirred inside it, trying to return. Instead, I hovered above myself, like an addled shadow. like a bird I wished I could become. And so then it flashes back from here to Europe, June 2007, just a few months before. Unforgettable eyes, blue as the view from an airplane window, welcomed me to Rome. Skin as bright as the first bite of an apple, this guy so unmistakably Irish. Ciao, he greeted me at the hostel desk, and something about the way he dipped his shoulders in a dance as he spoke made my heart take flight. His smile so big and pure and toothy, like sunshine calling me home. I won't pretend he didn't have a mullet. He did, and a scraggly beard too, all of it wavy and brown as a crisp fall leaf. But it suited him, the sideburns too, framing features so warm and comforting he might as well have been a campfire. No cheesy kumbayas, no s'mores, just that soft crackling sound you feel in your bones, and a heat that wakes your body even as you lift toward dreams. Is he on a gap year? I wondered. He looked roughly my age, 17. In the near midnight darkness, he checked me into my room, a co-ed 8-bed on the top floor, one bunk left empty for me. He held open the heavy metal door as I skirted past with my backpack and asked, "You traveling alone?" A wave of worry rushed toward me. Should I lie? Is he a creep? But something in his eyes put me at ease, so I let that something carry me. I am. Damn, he said, looking intrigued, then turned to leave. For just long enough to get where I was supposed to be, the narrow strip of light he'd made held for me. Where I was supposed to be was never left to chance. Growing up with constant change, I'd become my own reliable constant. Chart your course, hold steady was a quote that made me me. Once plan A was set, there existed no plan B. I'd made it through high school in one relative piece, and with what I'd saved from summer jobs, Hallmark, Subway, AMC, gifted myself this trip, a capstone, first intended as a visit to a few of my old homes. The suburban London red row house on a small street lined with bakeries, age 6. The tree-lined German lane where, age 8, I'd plucked chestnuts, packing my square pink backpack full. The hill in the Alps that I at 12 would fly down 2 bright summers on my bike, invincible. Then blossomed to sites I'd researched, scheduled, set. It's insane your parents are letting you go, my friend Foley had said, envy in his overprotected eyes. Not if you know them, though, Riss had replied. Still, it's our last summer together, they chimed. I need a palate cleanser, I'd joked, unable to explain the vague, pressing need I felt inside to bow tie this chapter, Kid Jenny's rootless life. Maybe I wanted to say goodbye, maybe claim it as mine. The past month, the sky had been mine, and I'd belonged to it too, since peering up from the smooth steps of Westminster Abbey. East and west, north and south, same. I'd stood silent at the feet of the graffitied coronation chair at a monument to Chaucer erected above his bones. I was times and times slid through and past and away, laughing as I tried to grasp it, admire it, trembling inside it too. It was unlike any budding romance with some gorgeous soul girl or guy, but a love so crucial I knew it as sinew, something holding me together. Different awe, different day, Hadrian's wall a wave, all 5 oceans surged inside me, and how wise and old and young and shocking the earth they nestled was. Different awe, different day. At Stonehenge, my body too was a shadow cast long by the sun. Sharply there I felt the mystery of what we're for. Even the clouds seemed ancient, the grass too, Tea and forest and lizard green, new blades still cloistering old worlds, once teeming with people themselves dreaming, maybe, of what was, while building their futures stone by stone, encounter by encounter, by word and chance and will and wish, too. Is that a good place to stop, Tim?
Sure.
Or do you want to?
Is it a good place for you to stop?
It is. I could do a few more if you want me to go a little longer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mandatory message to mom and dad sent from the hostel lobby computer. Arrived safe. Love you. I slept sounder that night than any other on my solo trek thus far, though the particulars were mostly the same as in England, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium. My frizzy brown hair held in a loose bun, one arm slung through a backpack strap, the bulk of it a makeshift pillow, my belongings safe beneath my head. Jeans still on, sweatshirt too, asleep on my side to face the snoring co-ed room. A Roman montage should have played in my dreams. My must-see list was long. The Colosseum, the Forum, Palatine Hill, the Vatican, Catacombs, Pantheon, the piazzas, the pizzas, the pasta, gelato, the fountains, the churches, the Spanish Steps. I had saved the best for last, I thought. Rome and Greece, but what I couldn't have counted on was how over it all I'd be. If not tired by the toll of travel, shaky sleep, frigid showers, sore feet, I was simply exhausted by awe. But that night newness flooded my dreams after a week of adoring all that is old. Each blackened limestone a lesson in my own smallness, my cog in the wheelness, my existence as a leaf on a tree. The newness was that guy at check-in, the surprise and vibe of him, how I felt, unbound by autumn breeze. For days on my way to see the crumbling ancient city that blooms from within a shiny modern one full of mopeds and gelato stands, I tried to flirt with him, my first post-high school crush, passing by check-in to ask a question I probably knew the answer to, but he was nowhere to be found. So I did as I'd planned, as the tourists do. I immersed myself in Rome's dual cities, then and now. Each morning, post quick, cold, coin operated shower, my wavy hair wet on my shoulders, I picked the day's sights over a dry cappuccino, noticing the froth crackle soft on my tongue, and split a pastry with the pigeons. I might have been growing travel worn, appreciating less about each city as they stacked up, site after centuries old site, homesickness slivering in, but this morning ritual, only its location changing, was far from feeling old. I, the perfectionist, should have loved the Pantheon, a building considered by all accounts perfect. A perfect circle, perfectly lit by the perfect skylight cut in its perfectly constructed dome. I stood before it my first Roman morning, small and ready to be amazed, holding my pilgrim's breath as I entered. But I found myself unmoved, searching for disorder, some hint of all it's been through, the years, the shifts, some slight crumbling, some stone somewhere wearing thin, an unevenly faded fresco. Anything. I stayed a while, wanting, then walked back into the sun. How's that? Good.
That's great, and
Okay.
that's beautiful. That's such beautiful verse in there.
Thank you, Tim.
But I've got to give you the first softball question.
Okay.
You've probably had to answer this one a million times. So Jenny Campbell, your character, how much of her is based on you, and which parts are?
Mm, that is a good question. Well, this book is a fictionalized account of my experience, and it was really hard to figure out that balance. And I think at first I was trying to do that consciously. And I had this wonderful writing coach who, I was like, I don't want to write a memoir. I don't want to write like autobiography. Like, how do I do it? I'm a poet, I'm not a fiction writer. Like, what do I do? And she was like, well, the first thing you do is stop thinking so hard and just let it go and write and make a whole big mess And then as you clean up the mess, it'll sort itself out. And if and that was too, I'm like, how do I do plot? Like how do how do I do a story? I don't know. So she's like, just make a big mess, clean it up. As you clean it up, it'll start to fall into place. And then if, you're feeling it falls into place in too much of an autobiographical way, you can start to change things. So I tried to really let myself go, but um similarities. So, I did grow up, Jenny Campbell and I both grow up moving around our whole lives. She moves more than I did, but like I was born in Miami and then starting when I was 7, moved to Germany, to North Carolina, to Colorado, to Holland, back to Colorado, and then on my own, like to Boston, New Hampshire, back to Boston, New York, Connecticut. So a lot of moving, and she moves a lot. Um, and a lot of her trip is similar to my trip, but if you do read the book and like there's an acknowledgement section in the back, and my trip also there was a lot more to my trip than her trip, and a lot more that happened with me with other people. Like as I traveled, I would meet different groups of people and we would travel certain places together. And I really simplified that in the book. She does a lot more alone than I did. Um, or I did all the same things alone, but I also had, all of these other experiences that, to just simplify, didn't make it into the book. So, um, a lot of it is very similar. And then the heart of the book is similar. I mean, the things that happen to her, most of them are things that happen to me, and we work through them in our own ways, I would say.
Now, writing a novel in verse, did you ever feel or find yourself jumping out of the poetic realm and then having to reel that back? And also, the second part of that question is, did you write it like linearly, like a chunk, or almost a poem at a time?
Hmm. Good questions. I didn't really come out of the poetic realm too much. The times that that started to happen were when I was getting edits. Because this is the first time I had like an, the publishing company, it's an independent press. It's from what I understand, though they keep being bought and it changes, but from what I understand, the last independent young adult and children's press, which is called Holiday House. Um, so it's independent and it's kind of a small group, but there was still an editor, you know, requesting some changes here or there. And so some of those things, because, you can hear in the way that I wrote it, one poem leads very fluidly into the next. And so sometimes when they'd request a change, it would be really hard to figure out how to fit it in there and still maintain the momentum that it needed. Um, and a couple of those places where there were additions, I still really notice. Like, I think it comes out of the poetry a little bit into more of like okay, I had to add some character development or something in here, but I tried to blend it as best I could. Um, and I really did write it mostly the way that it comes out. Like, I would be like, okay, these are the scenes I'm doing, and it would really kind of just get in a flow of one poem into the next.
I feel that like the YA market needs a book like yours because of how it flows. But did you ever feel in any way that a novel in verse was not the correct fit to a YA audience, especially kids that have like post traumatic poetry experiences
No, I think
through
the
school?
opposite. No. I mean, I think the opposite. If it's hopefully, like in what people have said in my experience with other verse novels too, there really is almost purely a YA market. I actually wrote this book first for adults, and Jenny was 21. She wasn't 17. And my agent took the book saying there's not a market for adult verse novels, but if you want to try, like I'll try and we'll try to break through. And I'm like, okay. And all the presses said no. So she was like, okay, maybe rewrite it for teens. And I was like, okay. So and actually, there was kind of a lot of that. Like, she had me rewrite it for teens. Then she also had me rewrite it to be set after Roe versus Wade, and then sold it to the press that way. I was very passionate that it should occur how I had written it, which is pre, like, iPhone use. I didn't want Jenny to be traveling with so much access to everyone and information. But that was the way my agent wanted to sell it, and it was bought that way. And then amazingly, the editor, the first note she gave was, I think this should happen pre Roe vs. Wade. I think this should be in like 2007. I was like, that's when I wrote it. I still
There
have
you
that
go.
draft. Um, but I think like those, so that said, they're like, there's a market for young adult verse novels and not for adult verse novels. And I do find that interesting, because it's not like there's really a young adult market for verse in other big realms, but I guess the story is the way in.
Yeah, and along with that, when you had to revise, I know how hard it is to revise even like a verse or a stanza of one poem to get it to all fit. When you had
Yeah.
to change Jenny from 21 to 17, how difficult was that, and how much resentment did you have during the editing process?
I did have resentment. I did. Um, I mean, it was hard, and it was hard. I think the harder piece I mean, I thought the age was going to be harder than it was, partly because in the original book, Jenny is graduating college and then staring her future in the face of like what she does for a job. And I thought, like, well, how am I going to do that now? But it did kind of work to easier than I expected that, she has um, this plan that she's always wanted for college, and it's sort of like whether or not she does that or finds herself going in another direction. But um the timeline change was harder because cell phones change everything, so I tried to make it that, my agent said partway through have her decide to turn off her cell phone. I'm like, that's not the same thing, but I'll try. Um, so that was harder,
It
because like,
got wet and she didn't have rice.
right, yeah. I mean, like with a cell phone, it's like you can't get lost. You can't, I don't know. It's just so different, which did make I would get lost in reflecting on like, oh, what a different world we live in now. But um it's hard because, and you can hear in there, I have a lot of internal rhyme and stuff. And so when you change any little bits of it, it changes it all.
Oh yeah.
But hopefully it worked out.
Now, was this a completely different experience in writing Calling Me Home than your book of poetry, which I love the title of your book of poetry, which was I
Oh,
Almost Was Animal. Just
yeah.
leaving out the A in there just makes it look, I was animal. I just
Hmm.
love that title. It's like so like subtle.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My 7-year-old saw that title the other day and he said, Mom, that's not a sentence. That's not.
Genetics.
Yeah. It was very different because I mean, like those poems, I think speak to each other, but in a much, well, it's not that it's a looser way, but it also is. I mean, I feel like to me they tell a story, but I don't know if that's only because I sort of know the story. I think those like it's like the sum of their parts, like, and you can read them and sort of get a snapshot of a person and all these different, like I used to say when I said I wasn't even a narrative poet in my poetry. I really felt like I wrote poetry to evoke a feeling or a moment. Like my poems, other than Calling Me Home, don't tell a story, and I was never interested in that, and I thought I couldn't do that. Like, I was just like, "I don't know." Even if you and I sit down to eat, I think I'm bad at telling a story, and I'm like, "I'm sorry that you have to listen to me try to tell a story. I'm not good at it." So, like, my poems just like that's not what they did, and that's not what I ever sought to do. So they're very different. They evoke like these different moments in a person's life and kind of taken together. It's like almost like you're looking through a photo book or something. So and I had no editors on those books either. So it really was just me.
So your 7-year-old editor, do your kids read your work?
Yes.
And out of everyone, who is the
Mhm.
most proud of you for this last book?
Oh, my 7-year-old. He has this book, and I mean, like, it's a little awkward because this book is like, there's like, I mean, it's upper YA, mature young adult. I mean, it's a mature book for YA. It's not for a 7-year-old to read. But he has it in his backpack and he shows it to everyone,
It's
and it
awesome.
has made him want to be a writer, which is very sweet. And um he tells everyone I'm a writer. He had a writer visit his school who wrote this very lovely kids book called The Library Lion. I can't remember the author's name, but she visited and he loves reading and writing. And so he got selected to have this special lunch with her. And, he told her, like, oh, my mom's a writer too. And then the day that my book came out, he came home from school with their kind of school. At school, they write stories on this blank paper that has room to draw a picture at the top and lines to write a story at the bottom, and a spot that says like put your name at the top. And he came home and he had put my name at the top and the rest was blank, and he said this is to start your next book.
Oh, that's great.
Very sweet.
No, sweet and no pressure whatsoever.
Right, no.
Now, what would you say? I also read the quote about you feel your poems. I read that in 2015, just so you know that I
Oh,
researched that completely when
oh.
you said it. But I also found out that Calling Me Home had a different title at one point, correct?
Hmm. I don't remember. What did you read?
Might have been, God, my research, it said something like you finished, it was right after the poetry book came out. You were quoted say, I have a novel, a longer piece of work coming out called,
Oh,
we can do,
I don't remember.
we'll have to do that off air.
Okay.
But yeah, like, I'll have to re-Google it. But yeah,
Okay.
last
I did.
question.
Well, it could have been connected to this because I have a book of poetry called Somewhere to Go, and that initially had a different title.
Okay.
And that title change, I still don't know if I love, but I did it because Marie Howe told me to. And I feel like you listened to Marie Howe.
Mhm, yes.
It was, the title was When You Feel Longing, and it was a finalist many times over. And I happened to be running this poetry event back when I worked at Poetry Society of America called The Poet Is In, where poets take kind of take over Grand Central, and passersby can come and get their get a poem written by, well, it was like Marie Howe and I don't know, a bunch of other people. And we spoke for like 2 minutes. And somehow in there, I said, I have this poetry book, but it's, been a finalist like 15 times. She's like, what's it called? And I said, When You Feel Longing. And she's like, I would never pick that book. Like, do you have some other titles for it? And I was like, yeah, these are like three others that I was thinking of. And she's like, call it Somewhere to Go. And I was like, okay. And then it got taken.
Wow.
I know.
That's a great story. And you said
Yeah.
you couldn't tell stories. That's a great
Oh,
story.
thank you.
Last question. What do you feel? And maybe we can even talk about like various points because your writing career and writing life has distinct timelines
Mhm.
and signposts. What do you think the pinnacle of your writing life has been?
Mm.
Or
Hmm.
best moment even?
Best moment. I mean, maybe like a moment that I remember just being like feeling like, oh my gosh, this is a really big deal was getting an agent for this book because that was so hard. And I feel like it was, even though this book still almost didn't get sold and made, like it was really, I mean, it got pitched a lot of places and, you know, that it really almost didn't get made. And everyone says, like, oh, getting an agent, doesn't mean you get a book.
Mm-hmm.
But it was that moment to feel like someone believed in it and wanted it. And since I didn't feel like I was a storyteller, I felt like, okay, someone feels like I told a good story. You know what I mean? And that was a validating moment for me. But I think just the most exciting thing has actually been how excited and proud my kids are.
Oh, that's so great. And thank you so much for being here with us and answering the questions and reading from your wonderful book. Of course, subtle hint out there, authors appear so others buy their books, just, in case you need to be reminded of that. If you're watching the stream on Facebook, thank you so much for that. Here is the website if you want to find out more. And Laurin Becker Laurin Becker, I'm going to blow it again. Macios.
You didn't blow it. You got it.
All right.
Rhymes with gracious. Thank you, Tim.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to say goodbye. I already said goodbye to him, so I'm just going to stop it. And if people on the live stream, if you want to come in for the open mic, use the link, and we'll happily have you in.